Ken Goldberg with the Cleveland Heights Historical Society. We have some new things in the Historical Society, besides being very involved with the Horseshoe situation, but I will save that for Korbi. I won't get into any details of that now. We of course have our history events coming up. There's the one program there on the October 12th, where it's another local history program with the, let's see, Restoration Cleveland Mid-Century Homes, and that is with the CRS, Cleveland Restoration Society, I believe. The program will explore mid-century modern and more recent historic housing types of the 50s, 60s, and 70s, placing them in historic context, examining character. This is a fussy thing, isn't it?
Not very fussy.
Examining character, defining features, and addressing how to make improvements and repairs specific to these homes. That one made it into the check us out here, but our other ones did not, unfortunately, such as tonight. And then there's the one on October 17th, which is very much our Historical Society, and that is all about Amber Heights. So that will be Korbi, our speaker tonight, will be speaking about Amber Heights history, and we also will be having Bill Hopkins will be speaking on landscaping or historic landscaping there, and then Angela Beer will be speaking on the Bicknell, the Horseshoe. Not the Horseshoe, Harcourt Manor, which she has done a lot of research on. So anyway, we have those. Now, as far as the Historical Society, we have added a lot of things to our website. We now have all the featured articles from our first website and with some editing and updating and all that. We have now, from the first website, also of editing and updating, we have our people and places section and other things. I'm working on a very much of an update on how to research or researching your house in Cleveland Heights, that sort of thing. That will be there, and databases to look up, and a lot of updates and improvements over the first site. And anyway, I will introduce our speaker, Korbi Roberts. She grew up in Cleveland Heights. Oh, she's on our board, by the way. She grew up in Cleveland Heights and attended the Coventry Elementary, Roxborough Junior, and Heights High School. She has a Bachelor of Science degree in biology from Old Dominion University in Virginia. Her teaching experiences include a semester at Chengdu University in China, substitute teacher for Norfolk City Schools in honors biology, and teacher assistant for CSEP's Autistic Children's Program in the Commonwealth of Virginia. She enjoys researching, writing, and promoting our fascinating local history. So I give you Korbi Roberts.
Thank you, everyone. So this is really a compilation of sort of the controversy around the Horseshoe Lake, one of the two Shaker lakes. And this is a compilation of a lot of people's research and a lot of concerns the community has and some questions and a bit of the history, because we all come to this issue from different places. So I'm sorry, I tried to put together a little interesting program here. Now, the interesting thing about Horseshoe Lake is it actually has a whole bunch of layers. So not only is it a vestige of the North Union Shakers, you know, it was built in 1852. It's about 170 years old. But after the Shakers vacated, then it became inherited by the Cleveland Park system. They were too beautiful to get rid of, so they repurposed them and they made it part of their brand design for the Cleveland Park system. And then it has been, since the beginning, a very important lake habitat for wildlife. It's kind of rare in this area. We don't have a lot of these little freshwater lakes. And the migratory birds use them as stopovers. And of course, there's lake-based wildlife that also, like turtles need the water over the top of them to winter over in this bad climate, that kind of thing. So there are many advantages of having the two Shaker lakes. Here's a little map I drew. The purple is the boundary of the Shaker property, overlaying the 3 cities that it belongs to. The yellow is Cleveland Heights, the mint color Shaker Heights. You've got like a goldenrod, which is Cleveland. They had about 14,000 acres. And University Heights up there in the pink, and you can see the 2 Shaker lakes there outlined, and where they are in the modern suburb. So the Doan Brook Parkway was saved for the people. The land was donated by citizens to retain this piece of green oasis in the middle of the urban landscape, because everyone knew it was all going to be developed and they wanted to save it around the Doan Brook. So Horseshoe Lake is one of the 2 Shaker lakes. There at the bottom is the Shaker Heights Park in orange. It's the biggest part of the Doan Brook Parkway. It's the upper reaches of it, where the upper headwaters, and part of Shaker Heights Park, and then which is part of the longer Doan Brook Parkland. And some of you may not know, but the Horseshoe Lake waters, the Doan Brook waters start around Green Road, maybe a little to the east, but that's where the waters begin. They come from natural water springs and also the drainage of the land within that area of the watershed. But that's where the waters come in. And then if we look at the Doan Brook Parkway, of course, it's a chain of a whole bunch of these little beautiful parks that citizens donated as a gift to the people, to the city of Cleveland, as long as they kept it a park, free and open to the public, as long as they protected it from development, that kind of thing. So we've got Gordon Park down at Lake Erie. We're going up the stream now. Rockefeller has 3 sections of Doan Brook Parkway. So there's the Rockefeller Park that we know of. Then there's Wade Park, where the art museum is and that kind of thing. Then there's the Cedar Division going through University Circle. Cedar Glen, we all know Cedar Glen goes up the hill. That's a tributary of Doan Brook. Then we have Ambler Park. And then we have a little piece in between Rockefeller's Fairmount, and then we have Shaker Heights Park. So the parkland, here's a picture of Shaker Heights Park. It's the largest part of the Doan Brook Parkway. So when the Shakers left, it went to the Continental Development Company, almost 1,400 acres. Then in 1893, it went to the Shaker Heights Land Company. And then in 1895, it went to the city of Cleveland. And then you can see that the suburbs were designed around the park. Because the cities knew they would benefit greatly from the park and from the lakes. A lot of people have asked me how much is on the Cleveland Heights side, how much is on the Shaker Heights side. This picture shows you where the dividing line is through the lake. And even though Cleveland holds the deeds, the suburbs lease the park. They wanted control of the park within their jurisdiction, so to speak. And so they hold the lease right now, but they have to follow the same agreement, which is to maintain the park, to take care of it, to leave it open for the people, that kind of thing. So these are some early postcards of the Shaker Lakes, and I just think they're kind of neat. I just want to see how beautiful the lakes are.
Those good news out on the lake.
Yes. Yeah, both lakes have been used, multi-recreational lakes, canoeing, ice skating, that kind of thing. Not both lakes aren't used in that way anymore. Some boating. There's the boathouse that everyone knows about on the lower lake. But these are just some nice old pictures. In the past, parks were really utilized. They were very, very important, especially before air conditioning. This is the Shaker sawmill remains that are still at the foot of the lower lake. Of course, not as much of it is still there, but there's a moonlight scene on the Shaker Lakes. You can see how beautiful the Shaker Lakes are. And here's some photographs. It's a highly photographed place. So many people go there, artists, poets, dog walkers, the whole bit. And this is what it looks like right now. So there were issues with the dam, and in 2018, 2019, the sewer district drained it out and left the wildlife to perish. This is a problem when they drain these lakes. And we were told it was going to be fixed, and instead, now we're told it's going to be removed, that the money doesn't want to be spent to replacing the lake. And so this is the controversy, because a lot of people feel like this lake was promised to the people, and it should be there, and it's needed for so many reasons. And there's really no reason why it can't stay. I'm getting a little ahead, but citizens joined together and hired engineers to look at the dam. They came up with feasible plans to replace the dam, all at under the cost that the sewer district was paying to remove the lake, remove the dam. So these are some of the issues that the community is dealing with right now, as far as the fate of this Shaker Heights Park and even the two Shaker Lakes, because of course, even the lower lake then would not be safe to these kinds of changes or removal. And I want to mention, the Shaker Dam was made by, North Union Shaker ingenuity, with horses and oxen and stone and earth, and yet made so well that it stood the time of, the test of time over 170 years. And, the lake's about 11 to, at the highest I've seen it recorded as 16 acres, usually about 14 acres. The lowest I've seen it is 11 acres, but I would say around 14 acres. So one of the questions was, some people say, well, the Shakers were here only 70 years, so, that layer of history is not really that important. But I really say all the layers are important, and they're really fascinating. And one of the questions I have is, what kind of artifacts could still be found? I know they use ground penetrating radar and, can let them see some of what's there in the ground, but who knows what could be around that site as far as artifacts go. So I started just to do a little bit of research, and here are the three big layers, the ancient people, including the American Indians, the last, rightful residents, before the settlers came in, the North Union Shakers, the farming, this became then farming land as they took down the wilderness forest. And then it became, preserved Cleveland parkland during this modern era of development. So I started to do some looking into it, and it's very fascinating, actually. And, we can start with, of course, our geologists can tell us that this area was once under the sea, the late Devonian Sea, back when the tectonic plates were all together. And it's interesting, when they were doing one of the highways here, they found this fossil, I'm going to mangle the name, Dunkleosteus, called Dunk. And they actually found the remains of this age of fishes 385 million years ago here in this area. Still the remains of it back when this was under the Devonian Sea. And so there are remains. Of course, the dinosaurs walked here. National Geographic says that the first humans were actually in the Americas 150,000 years ago, 130,000 years ago. And of course, they found mastodon and mammoth bones that had tool chips in it. Showing that humans were around at that time, that long ago, which I thought was fascinating. And it's fascinating to know that mammoth tusks and mastodon teeth were found all over the Cleveland area, under Public Square, along Giddings Brook, tusks, in the farmer fields. I find that interesting. And then you have the Native Americans called the mound builders, thousands of years of these sophisticated people who left incredible forts and temples, earthen temples and gigantic mounds. They did human sacrifice, worked in copper, very sophisticated peoples. They were around here for thousands and thousands of years too. Here's a rendition of the mound, one of the mound cultures. They were various cultures. I mentioned the mounds because mounds were all over the Cleveland area, and of course all over, the Mississippi Valley going down to the Gulf, but all over the Cleveland area, Public Square, Euclid Avenue, mounds all over the place. Sawtell, there is a famous mound. Then we have a representative of the American Indians, who, of course, a lot of stories from the first settlers about the the American Indians, and then some of the animals who were here before the settlers pushed them out. And I found this little notice about Amber Parkway, which is just down the stream from Horseshoe Lake, that they found a mound, believed to be the work of mound builders. Now, what happens was these things really got torn apart. Some of the artifacts were saved and put in museums, but just to show you that the mounds were still here when the settlement began. There were remnants. And then to continue the layers, mound builders to the American Indians. We know explorers came from all over the globe, from all the countries. They left stone tablets with writing, and lead tablets saying this land is ours, and all the different countries that claimed this area of Ohio claimed it as theirs. Eventually, this Northeast Ohio became the Connecticut Western Reserve. And then we move into modern settlement. And then people ask what tribes were here when the settlers came in. And I mean, the ones that I read about, the stories involve these tribes: Senecas, Chippewas, Ottawas, Delawares. And you'll find these are the street names in Cleveland. You'll find these, you'll find remains of them in street names, so to speak. But these were some of the tribes. And then I just wanted to put this here. The creeks of the area were home to the Native Americans. Of course, the natural springs were sites of their encampment. Doan Brook especially was full of natural springs all the way along the whole line to Lake Erie. Many spring fields. So you're going to find artifacts from Native Americans. So some sites: Lakeview Cemetery, Cumberland, Forest Hill, Top of the Hill. These are areas that people reported. Even as the settlers were coming in, there were still groups of American Indians who remained behind and were still carrying on their maple syrup making and all their other things that they, always did in their land. So, they were trading with the settlers really until like the 1840s. There was still a sort of overlap of the American Indians and the European settlers coming in, trading goods, visiting in the cabins. They would come and sleep on the floor in front of the fire of cabins. The Native Americans would at night. So now if we're looking at the Horseshoe Lake site, of course we know the North Union Shakers came in. Well, first we have the Russell family, early pioneer in Warrensville Township in the Shaker Heights area. And they came in about 1812. They were millers. They picked a good mill site, which is still our Horseshoe Lake site, which was a site of mills. And they were here about 70 years. They were one of the most successful utopian societies. They were way before their time, accepting members of all religions and races. I mean, they were a wonderful people. They really were instrumental in helping to settle the Heights, I would say, in their involvement. Gentle people, they did milling. Let's see. This is the Horseshoe Lake site. Here's just one rendition of the village there around Lee Road and South Park there. And you can see the various structures that were once there. Blacksmith shop. There were, the water power was used not only for the woolen mill there, but it could have been used for an earlier sawmill. Probably it was used for an earlier sawmill at that site through the Russell family. And then also the tannery used the water power, that kind of thing. So it's very interesting what was going on in this area back throughout the 1800s and how important water power was for this area. And there's the brick woolen mill. There at the Horseshoe Lake. The site is still there. The mill race is still there. You can still see the mill race there along the creek there, the foot of Horseshoe Lake. And we've got some shaker gals bleaching wool and hanging up wool. That was a big industry for the shakers. And really, for the Heights at that time, a lot of people were doing, sheep. They had doing wool. Wool was a big industry. So we have 3 ads here. The Horseshoe Lake, the shaker lakes were used as a place to harvest ice because the water was so clear and clean. And the shaker brooms, there's the wool carding done at the woolen mill. And then after the shakers vacated, I mentioned, then the Horseshoe Lake was repurposed as the park lake. So it still serves us to this day. And so once it was decided, the help of Rockefeller and philanthropists and everyday people who donated their land to make the Doan Brook parkland, once the parkland was all assembled for the people, then they hired this nationally acclaimed landscape architect, Ernest Bowditch. And so he designed this parkland. And today the parkland still shows it's still his design. And I'll show you in a minute an example of it. And this is the director of public works said, this was the big mission of Cleveland for the Cleveland area, was that these public parks, they wanted them to be beauty spots and to entice the masses to commune with nature. I mean, it's a lovely statement. That for equal opportunity for joy and recreation, for purer thought and higher incentive, that the parks are not the toy of any class. They are for the untrammeled use of every man, woman, and child that stumble along the path of life to make them happier and healthier and better. And this was the mission. These parks were really important. So this is an example of, the Doan Brook parkland and example of Bowditch's designs with the wide vistas, the views, the curving streets, just absolutely lovely. An oasis strip through the middle of the built-up urban environment that would remain, and very garden-esque looking. So not only did they design the park, but they also made sure the deeds conferred protection on the park, saying, forever to keep them, to maintain them, beautify, adorn them, keep them open as a resort free to the public. The deeds also say for like the Shaker Heights Park and the Shaker Lakes that to protect the health, welfare, and safety of the park, that's the requirement of the deed holder and the leaseholders, including but not limited to restoring of bridges, culverts, dredging, and cleaning the lakes. So as part of the deed, they're required to maintain those lakes. Unfortunately, a lot of Doan Brook is now in culverts and underground and sewers. There's not been a total respecting of the Doan Brook parkways. We know the highway going right through Warren Park, that kind of thing. Some of the ornamental lakes have been removed. So this is a problem. The park is free real estate and it's easy for it to be taken over. After the beautiful Shaker Lakes and the upper Doan Brook parkland, when it hit right before University Circle, it all gets sucked down under University Circle in these pipes, culverts, square tunnels, and they used to be above ground. Now you can see the wildlife. I mean, where does the wildlife go? This is obviously a problem. And you compare this and all the culverted parts of Doan Brook, and there's many, many, many branches that you never see. Compare that to Horseshoe Lake. A lot of people are trying to use the argument that, the lakes are artificial, that kind of thing, which I'll get into. But basically, the lakes are an above ground freshwater reservoir. They help fill the aquifers underground. They're a lake habitat for wildlife. And they also really are replacing some of the open water that used to be here before settlement. There used to be lots of swamps and lakes and ponds and what kind of thing that were all taken out when this was all turned to farmland. We've been told that Horseshoe Lake, you see it in the paper, causes flooding in University Circle. Well, it doesn't. And other than it's part of all the vast water that drains down there, of course, so it contributes in that kind of way, because obviously water is going down the stream. But you can see here in 2020, when there was no Horseshoe Lake at all, University Circle flooded. And of course, the flooding in University Circle is really, it's a bigger problem, which is the fact that Giddings Brook to the west of Doan Brook used to be a stream in itself that drained into Lake Erie. Now it drains above University Circle and drains, the whole stream was diverted to University Circle. So you can see the problem there. It wasn't meant to hold a whole nother stream. Also, this is the floodplain, and you know, streams need floodplains. And if you build on them, you're going to get flooding. I mean, this is the problem. Doan Brook has all kinds of tributary branches. Those are all in pipes now, fast moving. When there's a rain or a storm, the water just whooshes right down to University Circle. So, but I don't want it to give a bad name to Horseshoe Lake. See? I love this diagram. It talks about the value of a lake as far as filling up aquifers under the ground. You know, the evaporation of the open water is the water cycle, and you know, all the various things. Lakes can be great for the water cycle and for helping to prevent flooding too, because lakes slow down storm water. So that's another benefit of a lake, and not to mention the habitat and everything like that. So, you know, we talk about restoration, but you know, there's the great forests aren't here anymore. The stream's not going to look like it was in the, you know, Indian days. And there's pollutants and too many pesticides being used. You know, in Shaker Heights just the other day, one of the trucks with the big tank on the back is spraying out pesticides on all the public areas with those signs that say, you know, watch out, pets, children, don't come near here, that kind of thing. You know, and you kind of wonder, do they need to do that? You know, no, they don't really need to do that. And then it all ends up in the water system. So, you know, and the species that are here, there's a push towards getting native species back. And although the idea sounds great, what's going to live here is what can withstand the environment. And until our environment's better, we're of course only going to attract what can manage to survive. And then they barely survive at that in some places. So, you know, that's something to think about. And the question I have that has come up is, now that the lake bed is full of all these invasives, since it's been drained, you know, by the sewer district, how are they going to get rid of all those plants? And one of the one person mentioned that they, you know, use pesticides. You know, will they? That's a concern. That's just a concern, especially to me. This is a photo by Jeffrey Stroop, am I saying his name right? Just incredible photo. You can see, you know, it's not natural, but that's Doan Brook there, you know, going through. You know, the ultimate goal, of course, would be to open up our streams again. Wouldn't it be beautiful? Like in a lot of areas, they have to keep the streams open. You know, Horseshoe Lake belongs to all the people. The lake doesn't belong to certain organisms, organizations who want to use it for their own purposes. And a lot of people are eyeing that space right now. You know, there's so many areas that could be restored and made better. I think it's a shame that anyone would ever look at this crystal lake that's already there and say, we need to make this lake better. I mean, I think that doesn't even make any sense. So another issue is we keep hearing about loss of life and safety issue, right? We've heard that, and they keep applying it to the Shaker Lake and the Horseshoe Lake. But when we did a public record search and did a lot of research on it, just to see in the past, well, how many people have been killed by this lake, you know, or this or that kind of thing? Well, nothing. I mean, we came up with nothing. Even, I've got two examples I pull out. In 1901, the Cleveland area had a massive storm. All of Cleveland was flooded everywhere. Bridges went out, this kind of thing. Bodies washed out of cemeteries and were floating down the streams, you know. And the Shaker Lake dams held fast and true. You know, that's something in the article. There they were, just holding, you know, wonderfully. And then in 1931, when stones were knocked out of the Horseshoe Lake Dam, all the water washed out, nothing, except the fish. They were concerned about the fish dying and an old car they found. So, I mean, these are, not to say that you can't, that dams can't be, well, remember, it's an ornamental lake. Yes, you have to make sure dams are maintained, absolutely. But you just wonder if the picture is being painted realistically about that lake. So the Horseshoe Lake is included on 2 National Register of Historic Places designations. A lot of people have considered this lake so important. It was protected from a highway. Albert Porter wanted to put a highway system right through the heights and right through the middle of the 2 Shaker lakes. And the citizens rose up and saved our lakes for us. It was quite a fight. And as a result, we got to keep our lakes. Well, now we're right back in the same spot again. Now our lakes are about to be taken away again, and it's really something to think about. So we've got the North Union Shaker Site designation and the Shaker Village Historic District. I've got 2 pictures, 2 little things here. And okay, and we've got these historic signs. They cost like $3,000 to $4,000, a lot of research. I mean, what's the purpose of that? If when your site's ready to be taken away, there's no help from anybody to save it. That's my question. When 2 cities, Cleveland Heights and Shaker Heights, have certified local government status that they've applied for, which confers benefits for historic preservation, they can get grant money, blah, blah, blah. And yet the historic lake is just handed over to a utility. I don't understand that. These are, my feelings. Another concern someone brought up is plans, if a landmark's in the way, can somebody declassify it? Apparently you can. You can go in and say, and then you can use the land, the historic land. Well, that doesn't sound very good. So does the Horseshoe Lake harm water quality? So the sewer district sent out, I'm giving you, a history rundown here. The sewer district sent to 37,000 Shaker Heights residents in their Shaker Life magazine. It included an ad that talked about dams, how they had to be removed, how it affects water quality, this kind of thing. I thought, wait a minute, well, they build dams, they actively build dams. And how does a dam harm water quality? I don't really get that. A dam of stone and dirt in a beautiful Shaker Lake that's actually filtering water. I mean, there's a lot of questions here. And let's see what else on here. Oh, the fact that, when there was trouble with the dam, instead of going the route of let's fix it, let's put some money into this and fix it. Like if you have potholes in a road, you don't tear up the whole road, you fix the potholes because the road is valuable to people. Well, Horseshoe Lakes are valuable to the people in the park system. But so the public wasn't fairly told that the dam could be fixed. That's one of the issues. And with the new engineering plans that the citizens have gotten together to pay for, designed by the experts in dams, TRC, they've shown that a new dam can be installed there at less than what it would cost to rip out the old dam and remove that lake. And, so there are other possibilities that a lot of people feel that just are not being pursued for something so valuable. The Horseshoe Lake's not in the way of any stormwater management. It never has been. Let's see. Okay, funding can come from different sources. The sewer district is required to pay for a certain percentage of that stormwater management fee for that site. And yet, when the citizens came out and said they wanted to preserve the lake, they came out publicly and said they were going to withdraw all their funding. So that's interesting. Okay. Let's see if we can get to this is the TR, I'm almost getting towards the end. This is the TRC engineering plans. So A dam can be put just inside the Shaker Dam, even possibly keeping part of that Shaker Dam up. The historic spillway would still be preserved as a monument to the Shaker since they hand built that spillway. And it would comply to the Ohio Department of Natural Resources dam safety, new laws on that, where you need an extra flow channel in release. And the new design would save, you know, the point is the Horseshoe Lake is actually the artifact. The lake itself is the historic mill pond of the North Union Shakers. And there's so many historic sites now. The site's gone, and there's just a sign there. Well, you get kind of tired of taking the kids to the historic site and the signs say, it used to be here. It used to be here. You know, when we have a chance to keep it here, you know, and for many good reasons, not just signs. And then this is a collection of various, you know, there's been 206 species of birds recently, you know, in the last decade. There's a Cornell website where people log the birds that they see. You know, it's all plotted. And these are birds in particular that we picked out a few that need the lake habitat or are near threatened or threatened species or endangered species. And you know, to me, it's kind of sad that all these years now since the lake's been drained, you know, you can see birds fly overhead. I'm sure they return looking for the lake, and the lake's just not here. So they've gone without this lake now for quite a number of years. And I just think it's sad because it really should be there. It's so needed in Ohio for these migratory birds. You know, and restoration, you know, for these urban areas, if you're trying to restore a stream, they can be just fantastic things. You know, you take a trashed urban stream and you bring it back to life. I think it's a wonderful idea. And I wish it had happened all over here for all of our streams. But when you take a lake that's already in so many ways so valuable, not only because of its Shaker Mill Pond connection, Cleveland Park connection, wildlife connection, to take that, to get rid of that and in its place put a restoration, to me, there's no comparison, really. A lake to me is already the best, and a lot of people feel that way. Also, you have the trend in the Doan Parkway that once these lakes are taken away, the spot becomes easy picking for development or sewer use, like Ambler Park. Those ornamental lakes were taken away, and now there's, you know, sewer interceptor tunnels there and that kind of thing. You know, it's just, you know, that's something that you almost wonder, why are they trying so hard to get rid of this lake? Are there plans already in the works for development on that spot? You know, we did a tour of a historic building in Cleveland Heights, only to find out, let slip, that they were already talking about recreational development over the site of the Horseshoe Lake. See? And as long as that lake is there, it can't be, you know, it's hard to put a lake into sewer pipes, but it's pretty easy to put a stream in sewer pipe. That's how some people feel. You know, not everyone feels that way. You know, a lot of people feel that way. So another question is, who's going to pay for the ongoing maintenance and improvements of a kind of restoration park? Because there really is no money at this point for that kind of thing. So that would be a concern. The sewer district said that they weren't footing that part of the bill. So even though the public's being sold about this wonderful plan, and it might be a wonderful plan if they weren't taking away our lake to do it, but where's the money going to come from to fulfill that vision? And so this is really, I'm getting to the end. So Horseshoe Lake it's a very rare historical Shaker lake. It's one of the North Union Shakers had vast buildings and villages here. All the buildings are all gone. Everything was removed of the Shakers, except we have these two mill ponds with their handmade dams, with their chiseled stones in the dams and their beautiful lakes. So they're very important to keep. It's an irreplaceable Cleveland Park lake, vital for wildlife and migratory birds. And a lot of us feel we need to be the voice for the rest of the public who, you know, maybe today someone doesn't want to go to the Horseshoe Lake, but maybe their child or their grandchild would have liked to have had the chance to experience a lake. So that's something to consider. You know, losing that chance. A lot of people grew up around those lakes, really enjoyed them. They know how important they are. It's kind of sad that a lot of people won't ever get to see them. And then this is to show you there's community involvement. You know, there's a Friends of Horseshoe Lake website. If you're interested in helping, you know, you can join. We go out into the public. A lot of people don't even know that the lake's being taken away. Some people aren't even aware. And so we do try to, you know, share that experience and let them know that this is the issue right now.